What a crazy last hour you and I have just had.
It's insane. It is insane. I mean, I literally pulled up here and I was like, okay, wait a minute. Is this a building? And I'm talking to one of my best friends who lives in Charleston. I mean, from college. I've been friends with her for, I'm not going to say 30 years plus, but I'm on the phone with her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm pulling up and it's kind of looks like it's townhouses and I don't know where I'm going. And she's like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, well, I'm going to be okay. And then I kept calling my husband going, okay, just so you know where I am, put the tracker on. And I walk in and Kevin's there and obviously he's very smiley and happy. And I am not one of those people that goes and does a lot of investigating before I do something because I just trust God that it's all going to work out. I don't know if that's smart or dumb, but I do it. And so I walk in and then we realize that the woman you're dating, I know very well, and her family. And what a small world. Like God, the light is everywhere. I mean, I love that. It's like you go and you just know when you're on the right path. Yeah. Things open.
I love God moments like that. And it reassures for me on a constant basis, on a daily basis, because I do need to be reminded as an alcoholic, I tend to forget, and it kind of gives me subtle reminders that God is there doing for me what, I needed for so long. And, it's such a coincidence that you're friends with their family, with her mom. You were with her a week or two ago, and it's such an awesome sign. But, one of the things that I love about you prior to even meeting you just on paper is 19 years of sobriety. 19 years is a very long time. And I want to thank you because I have 7 years. You paved the way for me. You paved the way for people who came in after you. And without you carrying the message, following spiritual principles and the traditions to keep the meetings afloat, it wouldn't be what it is. So thank you. And I want to give us the basics. Where are you from?
Well, for one, thank you so much, Kevin, for inviting me and making this all happen. And I actually have 18 years and some change. So my sobriety date is August 14th, 2006. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, the home of Anheuser-Busch. I always now it's not really home there anymore, unfortunately, but I grew up there and I grew up not wanting for anything. The craziest thing is both of my grandmothers were big drinkers. So, the word alcoholic was something I had grown up with because my mother would be like, they're alcoholics, they're alcoholics, they're alcoholics. And I thought it was literally like having leprosy or something horrible, horrible, horrible. And no one ever told me that there was an option not to drink. Now we'll get to that later on. But so I started drinking at 13, like every other person that I knew. And we would ride bikes to my house. And that when my parents would go out for dinner, I'd have a bunch of people over and everybody would ride their bikes to my house and we'd drink. And my parents went through a really tumultuous divorce. And my mother packed up and left with my siblings. And I was left by myself with my dad in a big house. I'd the pool furniture was like my little furniture that I had in the family room. My dad smoked Vantage. I don't even know if you know what that is because you're so young, but Vantage cigarettes. It had a bullseye on it. And I'd sit there and play Atari because at that point there was one Atari game. And I partied. I'd have friends over all the time because my dad was in his 30s. He was not in his 40s. He was still young too.
Wow.
Yeah. So, living in a really nice, I grew up in Ladue, which is a very fancy neighborhood outside of St. Louis. And I was by myself with my dad. He's going out doing what he's doing. And I'm at home being a kid. And I have to tell you that growing up, my parents, I was of the age where the parents always had cocktail parties. Parents weren't going out for dinner all the time. You were going to people's homes. So my parents always had people over or they'd go to somebody's house. So there was always drinking around me. And when my parents were dressed up in the perfect outfits and holding this perfect glass and everybody was happy, everybody was happy. There was no drama at that point. My mom wasn't mad. My dad wasn't mad. There was no fighting. Everybody put on their good behavior and I couldn't wait to be a grown up and drink. It looked so amazing. And especially putting on the pretty dress and having the pretty glass and all that. I couldn't wait to be a grown up. Right? Every little kid says, I can't wait to be a grown-up. Grown up to me meant you were going to drink and party. It wasn't get a job and grow up and do all this stuff. But anyway, so I started drinking and I drank from 13 to 37. And I can go into some crashes if you want me to. I mean, like I crashed at 18. I hit a brand new Porsche. I'll back up and say I had a boyfriend and I'd broken up with him, but I picked one of my besties and I said, let's go. And we took a 12-pack of beer. And for those of you that don't know geographically, St. Louis is right on the Mississippi River, the gateway to the West. So Illinois is right there. So I was driving into Illinois and back into St. Louis, craziness, with my friend in the car. And I got off the highway on the exit, hit a brand new Porsche. License plates weren't even on the car yet. Got out of the car with one high heel on and one high heel off. And they said, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm like, don't you know who I am? And they were like, ooh. And they were like, yeah, I don't really care who you are. I'm taking you to the police station. And I go to the police station and I'm yelling and screaming and acting like a little girl. And my dad walks in and just says, shut up. And I go back to his house with his new wife and I'm asleep in the basement. He wakes me up in the morning. He's like, I'm going to take you to breakfast. I'm like, okay, great. We're going to go to breakfast. Let's celebrate my DUI. And we get on the highway. He goes to get on the highway. I'm like, Dad, why are you getting on the highway? He's like, I'm taking you to rehab. I'm like, what? And I try to get out of the car while it's moving. And I didn't. And my dad takes me to rehab. And like every good alcoholic little girl, I'm a master manipulator. I get what I want.
In rehab, or you got out of it before you even got there?
You
were the master. Okay.
So I learned how to play one parent off the other from day one. So I get to this place and I'm like, and I run into the other room and I like get on the phone and I call my mom because there's no cell phones, by the way, you guys, this is landline time. So I'm calling my mom, like, Mom, you're not going to believe what he did this time. And she's like, what? I'm like, he took me to rehab. She's like, oh my God, that da 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 da. And I'm going to call the attorney. I've got the attorney on the phone. Don't worry. Now go to the bathroom and climb out the window. I went into the bathroom. I climbed out the window, jumped down. My mom picked me up. It was like nothing had ever happened.
You scooted right out of there.
Scoot out. And nobody ever talked about it again. No one ever talked about it again. So that was my little glimpse at going to rehab. So I kept partying. I graduated from high school. You know, my life was like a check sheet you get like when you're born. Like, okay, you're supposed to get married. I mean, you're supposed to graduate from high school. Check. I'm supposed to go to college. Check. I go to an all-women's college in Washington, D.C., right in Georgetown, between AU and Georgetown. Right there, check. So I go to my all-girls school, and there we partied our butts off. Like we were not, I mean, I remember my dear friend Dina, who's now, God rest her soul, she ended up being killed 13 years ago, but we went back for a reunion and they were like, did you guys get out to enjoy Georgetown? We were like, when were we at school? Oh. So I went to Mount Vernon, which is now part of George Washington University. And my kids say now, Mom, you're the only person who went to finishing school that's now George Washington University. I'm like, yes, that's me. So again, we partied our butts off. I drove into the Capitol and I drove into the White House. And it's so funny because just watching the inauguration the other day and they panned up above Blair House, right? And which is right across, right diagonal to the White House pretty much. And they pan up and they've got all the security and all this stuff. When I was in college and I graduated in 1992, you could literally drive into the White House and they'd be like, girls, stop being silly, go back. I mean, go to the Capitol. Girls, turn around, go back. I mean, there was nothing like all of this crazy stuff that we have today.
Well, it was after you left and they beefed up the security because of people like
exactly.
you. No.
It was people like us. It's us crazy girls from Mount Vernon. And, but I partied and I mean, the repercussions were, getting just stupid stuff, waking up, not knowing who I'm next to. I hated myself a lot for my drinking. I knew that I drank differently than my friends. I felt badly. That was mostly once I got married. But anyway, so I graduated from college and I went out to Colorado and I was living in Colorado. My mom's like, I'm done with letting you play, Elizabeth. You need to come back to the East Coast and grow up. So I go back to the East Coast. I get a job working in television, which is what I always wanted to do. And I worked at the CBS affiliate, Channel 10, in downtown Philadelphia. And I worked there and I was a personal assistant to two of their major anchors. And it was like the gateway in. I was like going on the path I wanted to, because I always wanted to be the next Barbara Walters. I wanted to interview people. I wanted to talk to people. I love I love people, to be honest. I really do. I know there's a lot of people who hate people. I love people. I love talking to people. I like getting to know people, and it doesn't matter who they are. I love people. So I get this job. I go out to a party one night and I gossiped about, because that was my other thing. I was a huge gossip. So I went and I gossiped about these two anchors I worked for, and they fired me. So at that time, I was going out to a bar with a friend of mine who came down from New York City. We go to a bar in Bryn Mawr, PA, and I'm there and I meet a guy, and he knew my friend from going to the beaches in New Jersey. And I met my now ex-husband, and I married him because he drank the way I did. We partied together. We were big partying buddies, and we drank and drank and drank and did all the stuff you're supposed to do, right? So now I did the next check. Not only did I graduate from college, I got married. I got my MRS degree. Some people get BAs and BSs. I got my MRS degree. I did get a BA too, but I got married, and we played house, my ex and I. And we had all these kids, but I still would be partying the way I was when I was younger. And we'd go out and we'd have parties, and we'd be drinking to extent, maybe doing other drugs just to keep going, and drinking and drinking and drinking. And again, I'd wake up going, oh my God, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I'd always feel bad about myself the next day. And finally, I got divorced, because my ex-husband was the one that was the alcoholic, not me. He hid his, see? He took his and he hid it underneath the lip of the couch. See, he didn't do it in public. I always did it in public. That was my thing. I was last call for alcohol. Now, mind you, before I ever went out, I'd have probably a bottle of wine, then go out and then have another bottle of wine when I got home. But so I finally decided that I couldn't do it anymore. I had 3 little babies, one born in 98, 96, 97 and 99. So it was like triplets.
3 boys?
No, I have a girl in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a girl in the middle. But it was crazy. And I had these 3 babies, and it felt like today how to describe it is I had a backpack on filled with bricks, and I'm carrying all these people, and I'm drowning, and I'm having all these feelings, and I'm doing all this stuff and pretending, right? Like I'd never been a mom before. I had never been a wife before. I had never done any of these things, own houses, own cars, and doing all this stuff. And I'm pretending. And I might send my kids to this fancy school. That's the right all boys school. And I take my kids there, and all this stuff and all these feelings again of inadequacy. And I never really looked in the mirror in those years, because I think now looking back, it's so sad, but I just hated who I was. Even though on the outside, I had the perfect dress, the perfect shoes, the perfect handbag, all the material stuff. But on the inside, I was totally dead. And it ended up that long story short, my sister got married to a guy who was sober. Now, at this time, I'd been partying my ass off. I mean, I've been drinking. I was divorced at this point. I imploded my marriage. That happened. I say my divorce was like throwing a grenade in the living room, and shrapnel hit everyone because everybody was sad. You know what I'm feeling, Kev? And I was so full of shame, remorse, sadness, any adjective that you can think of that's negative. I felt those feelings. And what's the best way to get rid of those feelings? Have another drink. So I drank and I drank and I drank. And my grandmother died, who was born in 1913. This is in 2006. And she was born in 1913 and she died in 2006. And I was asked out of the grandchildren to give the eulogy the night before. I got so drunk. I had gone to my club, and the bartender, Dick, looks at me and goes, Elizabeth, you want to keep them coming? And I'm like, yep, keep them coming. And he kept them coming. And for the next 2 weeks, I pretty much drank like an insane person. And then my sister gets married to a guy that's sober. And I got drunk that night, something new and different, but I didn't think I was that bad because I remembered a couple of things, which was so crazy. I was a blackout drinker always. And the next day, I went to my mother's house for a brunch, and I had a mimosa in one hand and a Bloody Mary in the other. And a really good looking guy comes up to me and goes, "You know, you're an alcoholic."
You were talking about your sister. Did they get married?
Oh, yeah, they did get married.
Okay,
He was
so married
sober.
A guy who was sober.
Yeah, 20 years. And they're no longer married, unfortunately. But this guy's talking to me and he says to me, "Okay, so you've got a drinking problem." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, whatever." And I get in the car a couple hours later, and Philadelphia's only an hour and 30 minutes from the Jersey Shore. So I drive to the Jersey Shore, and in the car, I'm like, "Am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic? Am I an alcoholic? Am I not an alcoholic?"
You were just in your head back and forth.
In my head.
That's the worst.
It is the worst. Because I kind of knew I was. And by the way, remember I told you both my grandmothers were alcoholics. So I knew that maybe, I don't know, is there something correlation? We are blood. Maybe I do have this thing. So anyway, I get down to the beach. Somebody says, "Do you want a drink?" And I said, "No." And I woke up the next day and I said, "See, I'm not an alcoholic. I didn't drink last night." Because the way television portrayed an alcoholic back then, again, this is 2006, you're still like the hobo. You're underneath the bridge. You're, what's his name? Charlie Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're totally like crazy. You don't really still have a car in your driveway. You don't still have a house. You don't have kids. You don't have any of these other responsible things. I haven't gotten there yet. I always like to say it's Charlie Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the next day I go, do my stuff. And at 4:00, I go back to my house and they said, "Do you want a drink?" And I said, "Sure." And I was literally sitting on the end of the dock of the bay with a pack of smokes, cell phone, not an iPhone, like a flip phone, and a bottle of wine. And I was all by myself and I was all alone. And that's what I felt like I was for a long time, all alone. Even though I'd be in a party, in a bar, in my house with people everywhere, I was always all alone. And I was always scared, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I just remember looking at God on the cross and being scared of that, but being scared of what was going to happen to me. What is going to happen to me if I ever get sober and I have a feeling I'm going to be like Humpty Dumpty? All the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty back together again. And I woke up the next day and I went on a run on the beach, and it was August 14th in the summer in New Jersey. It was hot. And I'm not a runner if you look at me, but I went running.
You look like a runner.
Oh, come on. I do not. Stop. I do not. I wish I did, but I don't. I fell to my knees and I said, "God, please help me." And that's the last time I had a drink.
And that's your sobriety date.
That's my sobriety date.
Can you walk us through the thinking in your head, the unmanageability thinking in your head from when you were divorced? I mean, I'm sure it was going on way before then, but from when you got the divorce up until even when you said, "No, I'm not going to have a drink," that one time, and said, "Oh, I'm not an alcoholic." Were you battling in your head?
Always. Always, since I was younger. Well, for one, because it was such a bad word, right? It was the last thing you wanted to be in my family was an alcoholic. It was the last thing you wanted to be. It was like, it's like having literally leprosy. It's like walking around with a scarlet letter, like they talk about in old books. It was like, you do not want to be that. And I never knew there was a solution. Okay. There was no solution. So you're going to die an alcoholic. My grandmother ran a successful company, and we go to the finest restaurants and eat at all these fabulous places, and we would walk in the front door and she'd have to be carried out the back. Ironically, when my grandmother passed away, I found an old AA coin in her purse, one of her purses, a white chip. I have it in my bag out there. I will tell you this. As I mentioned, my mom left when I was younger, and I don't harbor any resentments over any of this stuff anymore. I've worked through everything, but I always had this sense like I was not worthy of anything. I wasn't worthy of love. I was dumb. My dad would make fun of me and say, "Oh my gosh, all you eat is a cat ate my gym shorts." And I wasn't smart. I was a girl. I was pretty. That was about it that I had going for me. A lot of toxicity in my family growing up. A lot of drama, I was scared all the time that I wasn't going to measure up. I've got to do this. If I do these things that are on this checklist, I'm going to be okay, right? So I married the right guy, and look, it wasn't okay and it blew up. So now I'm a failure again. Get me another drink. I would be out like anywhere I'd go. I'd be like, get me another drink. I never went out and didn't drink. I never, ever tried not to drink before. I mean, people would be like, can't you just have one glass? And I'd be like, no, I cannot have one glass because now I know I had that phenomenon of craving. I had no idea what that was, Kevin, before. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I knew I had something wrong with me. I knew I wasn't up to par who I was supposed to be. I knew I was kind of smart and I was a nice person, but I wasn't a good person. I was a piece of shit. I was a piece of shit because I had done all these things in my life that were really bad. I was a bad girl, right?
When you started to seek help in 2006, when you put the drink down, and I'm asking because I went through this, I had a lot of guilt and shame. And when I went to a self-help meeting, and when I went to the self-help meeting, I heard other people sharing the same guilt and shame, carrying it in day 1 sober, day 2 sober. And when I heard the other people experiencing the same thoughts and feelings I felt a part of, I felt like, okay, I'm not alone. Maybe I'm not a piece of shit. Maybe I just diverted a little bit and I can bring this back. They've done it. I can do it. Did you have that experience?
Well, Kevin, I went so far as patenting sober, not ashamed. Because I'm like, look, I don't have any more shame. I got sober. And mind you, I used to go to black tie functions all the time in Philadelphia. I'd be in the social pages and they'd be like, there she is in this dress. And again, drinks in my hand, cigarettes somewhere in wherever I'm in my pocketbook. And I had so much shame when I went in there. So much. It took me a long time. I mean, there's these steps that we do. And one of them was like, you have to look at your past. And I just didn't want to look at my past. And I thought, I can't really go back there. I can go and look really quick, right? I don't want to go back there because it's too much shame. And literally that first year, I really literally planted myself like we do like a palm tree down here in Florida, right? We have major storms, but the palm trees bend. So that first year, I really took the suggestions of my mentor that I asked to help me. And I said, will you help me? And this person said, yes, I will. And she helped me get through that first year. And that first year, it was really faking it till you make it. And it wasn't until year 2, and I got another different woman to help me. And I would walk into these self-help meetings and I'd be like, can you, and I'd raise my hand. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. And my second person who I love dear, I love all the women that have helped me, said to me, you know what? This is not Elizabeth. You look really great on the outside. You don't have to worry about that outside stuff. It's the inside. So that first year, it was literally just, now mind you, I had 3 little kids. So I took myself out of society as a whole. I took every suggestion because I was a mom. I had 3 kids to take care of and I had to do this. I had to get this done. I was going to graduate from something summa cum laude and it was going to be being the best sober girl I could be. So I'm going to follow every instruction you say. If you say jump, I'm going to say how high. I did everything. I got a therapist. I worked through things with my therapist. She said, for right now, you're going to have to divorce your family. That was hard. That was really hard. That was my family. That was who I wanted to finally give me the affirmations that I was a good enough person. And I had to say no, because every time I got around them, I'd want to drink. I mean, they knew every one of my pushing points, right? Like all the points, you're going to push me there. I'm going to feel this feeling. You push me there, I'm going to feel this feeling. And I really had to pay attention to who I was. I had no idea who I was. Now, mind you, I had cars, I had houses, I had kids. I had a husband and now he was an ex-husband. And I didn't know what my favorite color was. I had done everything that I was supposed to do, air quotes, if you're not watching this on video. I did all the check marks, but I never had that feeling like I was okay. I did everything I was supposed to do, but I still wasn't okay.
In the beginning, when I first got sober, they said, I went to self-help meetings. They said, you have to go to X amount of meetings in X amount of days. You got to do this. You got to get this. And it overwhelmed me. And I said, well, I can't do that. Like, I have a job. Like, I can't do that. I have nothing going on and I'm not going to do it. No, like there were excuses. You had 3 kids. You had a full life, a lot going on in your life, and you still found, just 3 kids is enough. And you found a way to get fully involved and jump 2 feet right into the program. I mean, it's no coincidence that you're coming up on 19 years sober because your foundation was so solid. Did you come up with those excuses at first, or did you just hit a bottom?
Oh my God, Kevin, my nickname's Busy, okay? It's on my car. So, of course I did. She was like, you're going to go to 90 meetings in 90 days and you're going to call me every day. And I don't do this texting thing, which I do with other people that I work with, because by the way, you can't tell how somebody feels in a text message as much as we humans think we can. We're like, oh, they said this in a text. I'm like, those are adjective, verbs, and nouns. They don't have feelings, guys. They're words. So she had to get to know me. And I really wanted this more than I wanted anything in my entire life. More than I wanted to be Barbara Walters. More than I wanted to be anything else. I wanted to figure out who I was. For so long, I had been I was a chameleon. If you want me to go and hang out and say, I'm a really great tennis player. Oh, I can play. Back then, there was no pickleball. I can play golf. I can do this. I can do that. I can go to a rave, but I can also go to the Colony Club in New York City. Like wherever you want me to go, I can be, and I will be dressed in the right outfit and you can take me. But ask me who I am and what I like. I have no idea. I'm just doing what everybody else wants me to be. If you didn't vote the way I voted, if you didn't go to the clubs I wanted to go to, I didn't want to be friends with you because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know who I was. At 37 years old and all this stuff. And I had no idea who Elizabeth was. And so excuses, I had so many excuses, but she said to me, if you want what I have, you're going to do what I ask you to do. And I was like, now mind you, her drug of choice was different than mine. She had been into heroin. She had gone to Penn. I went to, finishing school, but she had a husband and she had 3 kids and she had a calm life. And she had Serenity, and she made dinner, and the kids came home and ate dinner, and they trusted their mom, and they were living in a home that wasn't full of this complete drama. I'm insanity. And everything she had in that house, I wanted. I said, okay, you tell me to do this, I'm going to do it. And my mom took my kids when I would go to meet. If I went to an evening meeting, I tried to go during the day. I would try to go early in the day. I ended up starting a meeting that's still going on in Wayne, PA. And I started a meeting on Zoom during COVID. I started a meeting in Fort Lauderdale when I moved there on the beach. I'm about to start a meeting in Delray, I hope, God willing. And I did whatever I had to do to be okay. I would call my sponsor when my kids were little. And I'd be like, are you telling me I've got to make chicken surprise again? And I've got to do homework. And my ex is down the street and I'm going to throw up on her verbally about everybody, right? Complaining about him and her and And I literally used that person because they were willing to hear me and help me. And she'd listen and she'd say, okay, thanks, go make dinner. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd go make dinner. And every morning I'd be like, God, please keep me sober. And at night, God, thank you for keeping me sober every day. I'm not going to say I got on my knees because I'd be lying, but I would say I'd be laying in bed and just cross myself and just be like, God, just please help me stay sober today. And I'd stay sober and I'd do whatever she told me. I couldn't wait to help another person. And when that other person I went and helped didn't make it and ended up drinking again, I'd be like, oh, can't do that. Can't help those people because see, I'm really bad at it. See, that's my first go-to was I'm bad at it.
It's my fault. Yeah, it's all me.
It's on me.
It's crazy. The people, I've sponsored people where I was like, I don't think he's going to stay sober. And they end up staying sober. And then the ones I'm like, they're going to stay sober forever. They don't. No. It has nothing to do with you. Mm-mm. All you can do is carry the message, let God work through you. And whatever they do at the end of the day is their decision.
It is. I can tell you, Kevin, a dear friend of mine, Roger, gave me a book when I was first getting sober called God's Little Winks. And that's where I was introduced to this idea that there aren't coincidences, God puts this in our lives. God puts these little nuggets that we follow. If we let go, there's these crazy steps. I don't know if you get into the steps, but step 1, I'm powerless. And I didn't, in the very beginning, so I in my first year of sobriety, I did all 12 steps. I was like, see, I'm going to graduate. But to really know what it means to be powerless, I had to feel it, right? I didn't have to look at Merriam-Webster dictionary and say, this is what the definition is. I had to go and say, all right, this is what it means to be powerless. And to realize I have no power over anything. I don't have power over my kids. I don't have power over the person driving in front of me. I don't have power over the politicians. I can go cast my vote, but I have no power after that. I have no power in anything. And that took me a long time to really realize that. And then step 2, I have to come to believe in a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not insane. What are you talking about? I have this, I have
That's
that.
exact word I saw when I read that. Yes.
And then somebody pointed out to me, Elizabeth, how many times did you get behind the wheel of your car after having cocktails? I don't even care if it's one. And you drove a car. How much does a car weigh? I don't know. A Suburban, which I drove when my kids were younger, probably weighed a couple tons. And to think that I'm going to drive this Suburban with 1 glass of wine and it's okay. And what if somebody had run in front of my car? That's insane. That's insane. The hardest one for me by far was step 3, that I'm going to turn my will and my care over to God.
Oh, that's a tough one.
So hard.
Yeah.
So as we've mentioned a couple times, I'm sitting here with almost 19, I'm working on my 19th year right now. And that is still, it's getting a little easier. I've been getting way closer to God. And, I'm doing a Bible study right now with some people. I hosted on Zoom, and we're using Father Mike Schmidt's book, Bible in a Year. And that has been like, I just see in that book where God was working always, which then allows me, because if I let go, it's so much easier. It's the insanity that I think. When I was drinking, let's go back to that. I thought in my checklist, I got the right husband. I got the right zip code. I got the right house. I got the right club. I have the kids. I have the car. I have the handbags. I have the shoes. And I was nowhere. I was alone. I was a drunk. I was a mom that was a raging alcoholic. And when I came in here, and the longer I stay sober, the more I let go. How is it that I came here? I walked in here, you guys. I had no idea who Kevin was. I walked in here. I'm talking to my best friend, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm walking to this guy's house. Oh my God, it's in an apartment. I have no idea what this is. I mean, what is going on here? It's not in a like a corporate park or anything. And what am I doing? I'm going, he could be an axe murderer for all I know. And I'm like calling my husband incessantly. He's not picking up the phone. I'm like, what is he doing? Why isn't he picking up my phone? Finally, he picks up. I'm like, okay, this is okay. And then, of course, I texted him before we went on and said everything's kosher because we have so many friends in common. And like, this is a God wink. Everything happens the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. And I can try to shove square pegs in round holes all day long, and it feels really uncomfortable. But until I let go and say, that wasn't meant to be. It's okay. Something better's coming. But my ego goes, no, that's not what I wanted. It's not good. And we sit there staring at what wasn't meant to be, kicking our feet, stomping our feet, going, oh my gosh, I'm staring at this thing. I just have to let it go. It's a closed door. He's going to open a window somewhere. Just sit back and relax. It's all okay. We're all okay.
It's more exhausting trying to control will. I forget sometimes. I forget to turn it over sometimes and really bring some kind of higher power into my life, whether it's God, whatever it is. And you were talking earlier about while you were drinking, and I did the exact same thing. You were the tennis player if you wanted me to be the tennis player. I was, this, that. I was a hybrid. I wanted you to like me, so I was whatever I thought you wanted me to be. And then in the program, when I started doing work on myself, right? Because drinking, drugs, even gambling, sex, symptoms of the disease. When I did the work here, I started to realize that, first off, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Johnny from the store down the street, I want him to like me. I'll probably never see him again, but I want him to like me. And I'll jump through hoops so that Johnny likes me. And it doesn't matter. Like, I started to get comfortable with who I am. And then more people started to like me, actually, because I was just so comfortable. And who cares? It doesn't matter. And it was more work. It was exhausting living up to what you wanted. I thought you wanted me to be. And that's the same thing with, you know, God's will instead of your will. I've tried to control everything in sobriety. It just creates unmanageability in my life.
It just uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable. It is truly, it took me that people pleasing you were just talking about, you know, wanting everybody to like you. That took me a long time. I'm not going to say, a long time, probably longer than you even. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or what it is. And because of the social society group that I'm in, I have no idea, but it took me a long time to be like, okay with me. I'm okay. It's taken me a long time to know that I'm truly, like, authentically okay with who I am, with all my bumps, with all my lumps, with everything that's happened in my life, all of it. I'm just like, it's okay. And for me, my higher power, I call God, you know, and I think it's one of the most brilliant things Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob did was say, make your higher power whatever you want it to be. And I think in time, people always find it to be God. I don't know why that is, but it is for some reason in all the years I've been around here. And knowing that we're not alone, like that's like my coin phrase. For so long, I thought I was alone, that nobody loved me authentically. Nobody wanted to hear who I am, what your thoughts are, what my ambitions were, everything. But if I wore the right outfit and I stood next to you, it was like, all good. We're all great here. I'm not going to really chime in about what's important to me. And finding out what real friends are. You know, my mom, God rest her soul, used to say to me when I was younger, she'd say, Elizabeth, you'd be lucky if you have 5 real friends when you die. And I said, Mom, what do you mean? I've got 1 million friends. I can walk in every bar in this town and have 1 million friends. I know everybody at the bar. I know everybody at the club. I know everybody at the grocery store. She said, real friends that will, you know, don't judge you, love you authentically for who you are, will pick you up if you actually break down on the side of the road. You can call them at any time. They love you. But see, it was hard for me to find those friends because I didn't love me. So how do I expect you to love me? And to love yourself is so hard. We don't teach children to love ourselves, right? No, get up. You ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be looking at these teachers that would say this to my kids, and I'd be like, I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. So how do they know what they're going to be when they grow up? It's the craziest question we ask kids because they have no idea. Letting people be who they are. God makes us all perfectly, I believe. And we all have gifts that other people don't have. And you might be embarrassed by your gift, but your gift might be the one thing in life that other people need to see. And you stay home and you don't do it because you're scared somebody's going to judge you. Mm-hmm. But like starting a podcast, like you starting this podcast, I'm sure you had so many self-doubts and going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And your family, who's going to judge me? I don't have a real job right now, right? It's not real. I'm not going to an office with the briefcase in my hand and going into New York City like I used to do. Mm-hmm. I'm a loser. See, I'm a loser because I'm taking this risk. But it's so much strength that you're actually doing what you want to do and that you believe in yourself enough to say, I'm going to do this. I don't know what's going to happen. I have enough money to maybe make it for a couple months with my mortgage or my rent, whatever it is, but I'm going to try it anyway. Because who wants to have regrets? We're all going to slide in, and I'm going to give this to McDonald's, but the golden arch is in the sky. And we're going to slide in there and we're hopefully going to say, I don't have any regrets. I don't regret my drunk days. I had a lot of fun. I don't remember a lot of things, I mean, luckily my best friend I've had since I was very young, she always says, oh, well, this is who I went to college with her too. So she'll be like, do you remember? I'd be like, I don't remember this, Jeannie. What is it? And she'll call me. She'll be like, oh, this is who it is. And I'm like, oh, right. But I don't remember because I was in a blackout, but I don't regret it because that's what brought me to where I am today. We all get lines. We all are going to die. We all are only here for a finite time. Why don't we love ourselves? Why do we want to look like everybody else and dress like everybody? I don't understand it. We should be creative. We should be proud of who we are and not be sad because we don't fit in the mold that robots fit in.
I want to talk a little bit about the service that you do. You've started a number of meetings. You've led meetings. I mean, I could just imagine the commitments outside of leading meetings. You today are a coach. I like to call them self-esteemable acts, giving back. It's a common theme. The people who have long-term sobriety that I bring on this show, that I cross paths with on a daily basis, tend to have a higher index of doing service when they're sober long-term. What does service work for you do?
Well, I have to tell you from the very beginning, that first sponsor I talked about said that if somebody asks you to do a commitment, you always say yes. You always say yes. And I said, okay. Now, they still even smoked in meetings back when I got sober. So it was like even being a greeter, cleaning up the ashtrays, cleaning up the kitchen, all of those. In the very beginning, it was that. I couldn't wait to give back because they say if you don't give it back, you're going to lose it. Now, I've watched enough people that have gone out and come back and gone out and come back, and many that never did come back, right? I've watched a lot of people die. Some of my best friends have died due to this disease. And I don't need to figure out why that works. But if you stay in the middle of the bed, in the middle of the pack, you're going to stay sober. So I've watched that. I've watched that many times. So I'm call me monkey see, monkey do, but I'm going to do what the people do that are the winners. And they would say, stick with the winners. And I'd be like, what does the winners mean? And that didn't mean like that they had a Rolex or they drove a Maserati or they lived in the best. It meant that they had peace and serenity. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to, like Elizabeth, I wanted to love myself and be able to tell other people that, you know what, I can love you till you love yourself. And I can help you get there if you're willing. If you're willing to take these steps, if you're willing to do what I'm going to ask you to do. If you do these things, you will have a life beyond your wildest dreams, which in the beginning, when they'd say you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams, I'd be like, bullshit. You're not going to. How am I going to have my life beyond my wildest dreams?
It's over. There's no more alcohol in my life.
There's no more dancing on bars, Kev. There's no more. I can't get up there and do the stuff I used to do. You know, and I thought my life was over. And I didn't realize that I had no freedom when I was drinking. There was no freedom. That was the biggest lie. Because that alcohol owned me like nobody's business. I'd go to a party. I got to make sure I'm in between the bar. Do they have enough cocktails right there? I got to sit closest to the bar. I've got to make sure the waitress is going to come by me. I've got to make sure it's always filled. Because once I had that sip, goes down your throat, warms you. You get this teeny tiny buzz, right? That makes everything okay just for that. And I think it might even be maybe a quarter of a second that you have that feeling that everything's good, and then you chased it. That's me. I have that phenomenon of craving. I have one sip. I remember when I was studying, I went to Karen to learn how to be a recovery coach 13 years ago.
Karen Treatment Facility?
Yeah.
That's where I went.
Yeah. So that's, yeah.
In Pennsylvania?
Yes, in Warnersville.
Reading?
It's Warnersville.
Oh, yeah. Warnersville. Yeah.
So I went there and I did my training, and when I was there, I always thought it was so funny because I'd go and the people that were in detox would come in and say to the nurses that are handing out medication to people while they're in detox. And they'd be like, what are you giving me? What are you giving me? Like they're giving them some drugs or something. I'm like, wait a minute, you just scored shit on the street that you wouldn't even have that person to your house for dinner, more or less share a drink with them. But you're asking a certified nurse or doctor what they're giving you who've have the education. It's just like crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And when I went there and I learned like all this, this disease we have is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. It is going to kill me if I don't stay in front of it. They would say Budweiser, they would say, the beer's outside doing parking, push-ups in the parking lot when I got sober. And I'd be like, is Budweiser out there? Because again, from Anheuser-Busch, I used to drink
at this meeting, I'm going out there.
Yeah, it's out there. There's the bottle of Bud going like this. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
And, but what I realized from watching other people, it doesn't get better. No, it gets worse. And again, I'm a voyeur in life. I love people. I used to sit with my sister in 30th Street Station in Philadelphia and watch people. And I watched people in the rooms and I'd be like, wow, that person really has it. That person, oh my gosh, they just went out. And oh my gosh, I don't want to catch it. Stay away from me. So when it was like, stay with the winners, those were the people that had long-term sobriety that were doing this. They were not only talking the talk, they were walking the walk. And that's what I am attracted to. I still am. So I still love to help people. I hadn't coached in a really long time. I used to coach a lot. And then I decided just recently to start coaching again. And it is so rewarding to hear somebody. I work mostly with the family because I feel like that's the missing link. When I took a family member to care in myself and dropped that person off and wrote the check. And what I realized when I did that, because I got sober in the rooms, I didn't go to treatment. What I realized, what you're getting for that check, let's say it's $38,000, $65,000, $150,000, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
The family's getting what? What's the family getting?
You're their son or daughter back.
Well, they think they are. What are the chances of the person getting back? What they're really getting for that amount of money is sleep. Good night's sleep. They know their loved one is locked up. Their loved one is in a treatment center. But coming out, the person comes out, and I've watched so many family members that are like spouses that have said, why does he or she keep going to meetings every night? Why are they out? What are they doing? Oh my gosh. Why are you going out again? And they're like, well, I need to go get my medicine. I need to go so I can be good here. And they're like, well, wait a minute. No, you're leaving me. That doesn't feel comfortable. And those loved ones, they don't want to go to Al-Anon, and I don't want to cut Al-Anon, but I've been to one meeting before and I really wanted to drink afterwards because there was no solution. So I am focusing on the family and how to deal. The family members puts this act of life back together. Because it's really hard, Kevin, to explain to somebody, especially right after you've gotten out of treatment and you're like saying to your spouse, I got to go to this. And they're like, wait a minute, where are you going? Why are you leaving? And you're like, well, I have to do this. Well, why do you have to do it? Well, they told me that I had to do it if I wanted to stay sober at the treatment center. Well, I don't know that. I don't know if that, I don't like that idea. And nobody can really explain to a loved one that this is the answer. When you're an addict, you're not going to go in like a broken arm. You're not getting a cast that's going to be off in 6 weeks and you're going to be okay. This is the rest of your life.
When I first got out, I experienced something like that. And it's like, get sober, get sober, get sober. You get sober. And then there's codependency there. The point is, there are other issues that need to be addressed as well with the family and support. In terms of where you're at today, what does coming up on 19 years of sobriety look like? And looking back over the past 19 years, or 18 and a half, if you want to call it that, what was that journey? I mean, you gave us a lot of great, insight into what that road looked like. But overall, if there was anything you could do different in sobriety, what would it be?
Nothing. I don't regret the past. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret anything. I've learned from everything. The only thing I've done perfectly this entire time is not drink. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Let's be totally honest.
I love that.
It is truly the only thing. I learn, unfortunately, from mistakes. Okay. That's me. I fall down. Well, I get up. I might fall down again. Well, why did I fall down? Oh, I shouldn't be wearing those high heels like that. But, I mean, something so nebulous as that. But, it's literally living one day at a time. It's one day at a time. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Those first 3 steps, it's constantly, I'm powerless over this. I have no idea. And step 2, there's something bigger than me. And for me, it's God. And step 3 is letting go. Like, I don't know what is going to happen. I have no idea. And the fact that I even thought that I knew what was going to happen was like, think back, God, I was absolutely batshit crazy. I have no idea. I mean, I don't sell people, their fortunes on the boardwalk. I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I don't think any of us really do. I mean, that's humbling. Really getting humbled to the fact that I have no idea about anything. And it's really, the longer I've stayed sober, the mellower I've gotten. I'm now an empty nester. That was really hard. That was really hard. Really hard. I can't even tell you how hard it was. It was it was a lot of crying, a lot. I moved 5 times in those years because I could never get comfortable. And here I am. I've almost lived in my home for 2 years. I've realized that my husband's number one. My kids have their own lives. That took so long to let go of what they were going to be and what they were going to do and who they were going to marry and who their partners were going to be. I had no idea. And, for so long, again, it goes back to that childhood. It has to look like this. But we don't live in a doctor's office form. We don't. We don't fit in boxes. And getting really okay with that. Knowing in my head I don't fit in a box, but owning it in my heart. I mean, they always say from your head to your heart is so far, right? Yeah. And it truly is.
It's a lot of pressure. The box checking you talked about in life, I went through that too. I thought that's the way, that's the blueprint that we're supposed to all follow. And that is what success is in life. And it's so much pressure. And then I started applying it to things even when I got sober. And then I would catch myself and I'm like, wait, no, it doesn't have to be like that. You talked about the thinking, understanding who you were and like learning who you were in sobriety at 37 or 38 or
37.
It took me 5 years to figure out who I was in sobriety. Annabelle and I always talk about this. That 5-year mark is like the sanity one. Like once you get out of the 5 years, okay, cool. Like when we started, talking to one another, we're like, okay, you're over 5 years. Yeah, I'm over 5. Okay, great. You're saying, not completely, but you.
Well, in the first 5 years.
First 5 years is madness.
Well, first 5 years, you learn you learn who you are.
Yeah.
Right? You learn what your marbles are.
Yep.
You learn what your character defects are. You learn what makes you tick. You learn you start to embrace the fact that my favorite color is orange and not green. It's, you learn so much about yourself fundamentally. Like, it's just like, we'll go back to the ABCs. I mean, it's really learning, like, this is who I am. I can look in the mirror and I can own who I am. That took 5 years. Then 5 more years after that, it learned to play with all these things and learn how to play properly in different playgrounds, all different groups. And here I am in my 19th year. And I have learned, like, it is so much more basic than I ever, I want to complicate the shit out of anything, right? As alcoholics, we want to be, and I am like big or go home. And I used to love drama. I'm like, I want to live on drama. I'm like, here we are, the WWF of my family life. And that's how I grew up, because I grew up in chaos. I mean, for me to not have chaos in the beginning was like literally like something, like somebody had unplugged something. I'm like, what is going on? Why is it quiet? I don't like this. I don't like the quiet. Prayer and meditation? Are you freaking kidding me? I don't know how to meditate. That's insane. I'm never going to sit there and go, with my hands like this, right? I had to go to Penn and take a class on meditation. I'm like, wait, I have thoughts. And there I heard, guess what? You're always going to have thoughts until you're dead. I'm like, oh my God, thank God somebody told me that. Because I thought meditation meant that I was going to be sitting there with like no thoughts.
Yeah. Completely clear-minded. Yeah. It's crazy. It's almost like a detox from the madness.
Totally.
I experienced that. I had a lot of madness in my life. I loved chaos. And, we learn. That's the beauty of the program and getting sober. You can learn anything you want. You can become who you really are, whoever you want. It's crazy. Because I'm sober, I could walk away from Google and say, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do whatever I want. That's it.
It's crazy. It is so crazy. It is like, for me, I always wanted to be the next Barbara Walters, right? So now that all fell apart. I ended up having 3 kids. I stayed at home and I did little jobs here and there, one of which was selling products on air on QVC. I did that. I sold products on air. And then I was an extra in the movies, and I was in Lovely Bones and Silver Linings Playbook, and did all these crazy.
Were you really?
Yeah, I
Silver
did all
Linings
those.
Playbook?
Yeah,
so that's a great movie.
You didn't even see me, but I was in the dance place, and I was talking to Bradley Cooper, and we were at that point talking about Morning Joe. Crazy enough, anyway. That was back in Philly, and he's a Philly boy as well. But it has been, and then when it came. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a certified health and wellness coach. I went and I studied over in Amsterdam, health and wellness with this Kathleen Birkins. She's fabulous. And I've done that. And I'm willing to say yes. Somebody asked me to go to Medjugorje. I was like, oh my gosh, Medjugorje, it's this place where the Blessed Mother's been appearing since 1981. I went by myself, got on a plane in Miami, went over, met a girl I'd never met before in my life from LA, who actually was a producer of the movie Fatima, Holly Carney. Met her, went over there, went over to Medjugorje. It's like constantly, God keeps putting things in. All you have to say is yes. Like that fear I talked about earlier, that I had all this fear, it slips away because the boogeyman really isn't there. There is no boogeyman. For so long, we think that there's this boogeyman or that these people are watching over us taking score. There is no like big boardroom above us that is taking checks. Yes, you were good. Yes, you were bad. But I remember when I was asked to go to a boardroom with my attorney, my patent attorney who had patented Sober Not Ashamed. She said, come down. I'm having this meeting. I'm like, why did you invite me? I'm just like this little recovery coach and a mom. Like, what am I? And I went there and this woman asked me, Michelle Pageas, who owns 0 to 5, said, I want to take you on pro bono. I like what you're doing. I said, this is cool. Okay, I never thought this was going to happen. And these kids said, you should start a podcast. And I said, what's a podcast? This is almost 10 years ago. And they said, well, it's this thing on the radio you're going to produce, right? We're on it right now. And I went and I did it. And I've been doing it ever since. And I don't make any money. I hope to one day when God's willing wants me to. But, I keep doing it. And I keep doing it because I'm helping another person. People have written to me from all over the world, especially moms, that have said, oh my gosh, I relate to you. I have a dear friend in Dallas who, got sober listening to my podcast. And we've never met in real life yet. But 7 years ago, she started listening to my podcast and hasn't, stopped drinking. So my giving back is like, that's all I do. Is I want to help the other person, the other alcoholic, the other family member that's out there and say, when they are like, I don't know what to do. I'm feeling so lost and alone. Because again, I didn't think my drinking affected anybody.
Little did you know.
Little did I know. Did you have those feelings?
Of course. I was so selfish. I'm like, I'm not hurting anyone. Relax, everyone. Yeah. We're good. We're good here. I got it. I show up at work every day. That's it. Functioning. You talked about like, I said, I'm not like that guy. I'm not homeless. I'm not, I don't look like a crackhead. I show up to work every day on time. I don't know how though. I ended up showing, for some reason, that was the one and only thing I was able to really just show up for every day. And I was always on time. And I would use that and justify through that. Little did I know I was dying inside. And, my mom's worried sick, everyone in my family, I'm stealing from my family. I'm doing this. I'm lying to everyone, not showing up. You hurt a lot more than yourself. But do you want to plug your podcast and your socials?
Sure. You can find me
please.
on Conversations with Busy on everything. I'm on Spotify, anywhere you would listen to a podcast. You can go to my website, elizabethchance.com. That's probably easier for you. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram on Conversations with Busy. I'm not on there that much, but I do post stuff from the podcast. And DM me. Send me any questions you have. I'd love it. And I promise I'll reach right back out. You can always email me at elizabeth@elizabethchance.com. And that's like take a chance, CHANCE, and Elizabeth with a Z, ELIZABETH, chance at elizabethchance.com.
Busy, thank you so much. And again,
I can't wait for you to come on my show.
Oh, 100%.
And then you're going to be in the hot seat. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I would love that. It's what we do in the podcast world, pod swap.
Exactly.
And I want to thank you for staying sober and showing the people who came in after you that it does work, and you're a living example. So
thank you so much.
If it wasn't, if it weren't like people like yourself, I wouldn't be here today. So thank you very much. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It's so great meeting you. I'm sure we're going to be friends forever.